Okay, so let's get started. Let me turn on my camera as well. Yeah, welcome to this talk. This talk is basically based, or the what we are going to talk today is about Google Assistant and Android. How can we integrate Google Assistant in our Android apps? But first, let me introduce myself. I'm Ser Portilla. I'm infrastructure engineer lead here. I mean, not here at VoiceFlow. Um, so let me talk a little bit about me. I'm. You can follow me on my social media accounts, basically Twitter, GitHub, YouTube, and Twitch. I have to push more content to Twitch. Honestly, I am the Google developer group leader at the Madrid local chapter, the GDG Madrid. As I said, I'm infrastructure engineer lead, and I am a voice first enthusiastic. I love everything related to the voice first, either Alexa or Google Assistant, and yeah. As one of the biggest kind of or things that I'm very proud of in my short personal careers, I am a Hyperloop advisor, designing the next way of transportation. In this case, is the Hyperloop, and you can follow me, or you can check all the blog posts, or the all the videos that I'm doing, all the talks that I'm doing, like this one on shavidop.me. There you can find information in English and also in Spanish. So yeah, and also for the Spanish speakers, I have one podcast called VozTech, which is voice tech in English, to talk about all the voice assistants in general and conversational AI. And I am how's that called, organizer of the Alexa community in Spain. In terms of awards, I have the most important one is the Alexa Champion and the AWS Community Builder, which is a recognition for my all my contributions to the voice first community, more related to Alexa, of course. And today we are going to talk about Google Assistant and Android. Okay, so how can I add voice capabilities to Android, or how can I add voice capabilities to my Android app? Better said. So right now we have two ways of doing this. The first thing is the Google Actions, and the second way is the Google App Actions. Okay, the Google Actions are voice apps that you are going to develop for your Google smart speakers, for your Nest Hub, Nest Mini, etc. I have to say that the Google Actions are going to sunset on June 2023, so from a year from here. And yeah, the Google Actions are voice apps running on smart speakers, and the Google App Actions are the capabilities that we can add in an Android app to interact with the Google Assistant in our Android app. So thanks to these new ways of developing things, are adding voice capabilities, creating voice apps, it's when you can see, like this new role that you can see, for instance, on LinkedIn, on some resumes, which is the voice app developer. Something that we saw, for instance, when the app development started in 2010, for example. They call it app developer for iOS, for Android, etc. So right now it's kind of the same, but on the voice space. So which are the parts of the Google Action? Basically, we have two main parts. The first part is the front end. So for the front end, we have the voice user interface. So when we are interacting with these devices, using voice, the first thing that we need to design is the voice user interface. Is how are we going to interact with the device? You know, like which are the utterances that we can say and the device will understand, and then we are going to create a conversation, you know, using conversational AI, using natural language understanding. We are going to talk about natural language understanding. Yeah, we're going to talk about natural language understanding in, a little bit further in this presentation. And then for those devices that has like a small screen, for instance, the Nest Hub Max, you can develop like web apps using HTML, JavaScript, and also CSS. And there are some built-in views that you can use as well to show to the users information in those screens. When you are using graphics and also the voice user interface, you are doing a multimodal experience, which is really, for me at least, it's very fascinating in terms of the conversational design. So yeah, that is the front end. In terms of the back end, what we have for the Google Actions is a serverless app written in JavaScript that is a Firebase function, basically using the Action SDK. But you can use another backend, you know, you can use Azure Functions or Heroku for deploying your Firebase function, for instance. How does a voice app work? How a Google Action works? Let me explain you in this slide. Basically, when you are interacting with your Google Nest, when you say the hot word, for instance, a Google, it will start listening to you. So it will start recording all the things that you are saying. And when you stop talking, that recording, it will send that to the cloud in voice format. In the cloud, there will be some processes that are going to be executed, some artificial intelligence processes that I'm going to explain a little bit later. And then we're going to have JSONs, because you know the ID systems between them, they understand like, you know, some standards like JSON, you know, they understand text, they don't understand voice or MP4 recordings. So once we have a transform, you know, from voice to JSON, then on that JSON goes to our backend. The backend will solve the request from our user. For instance, if we are requesting the temperature or the current weather in Madrid, our backend will check for that weather in Madrid, for instance, accessing any external API with, you know, on our backend. And then that once we have that solved, that backend will get us the information in JSON. That JSON goes to the Google Cloud as well, and another transformations are going to be executed, and then we are going to have, you know, that voice, the final voice that we are going to hear on our Google Nest, you know. So this is basically the flow. How that in terms of the technology under the hood, as I said, everything is Firebase. So the code is running as a Firebase Cloud function. If you want to use databases, you can use the non-relational Firebase Cloud Firestore, which is, you know, the non-relational database. It's really powerful and really easy to use with the Firebase SDKs. If you want, as I said, you can create your own HTML, CSS, and all that stuff. You can host that using Firebase Cloud hosting. And for the assets, images, videos, MP3 files, MP4 files, everything, you can use Firebase Cloud Storage. All of these services, they have a free tier, so it's very, very, very cheap. So in terms of the processes that I told you that are happening in the cloud, what we have is the first, the automatic speech recognition, the ASR. So what is happening is transform voice into text. So when the recording goes to the cloud, the first thing that is gonna happen is transform that voice into text, and then is where when the natural language understanding is going to be executed, which is recognize a part of the text. Remember that we were requesting the weather from Madrid. So what we were requesting is, or what we're going to know after the natural language understanding process is executed, is that we're requesting the weather, and not the weather, from whatever place. We are requesting the weather specifically from Madrid. The engine that is running under the hood is of course Dialogflow, which is the conversational AI platform on Google Cloud. And here this is an example for the natural language understanding, and see how Dialogflow works. You can take this example as well for the Google App Actions. We are going to talk about Google App Actions in a little bit short of time, but yeah, this is basically how all the natural language understandings mainly work. So in this case, we have the wake up word, which is, or hot word, which is okay Google or hey Google, and for the Google action, you have to say talk to. In my case, is Pokeworld. Let me change this. So yeah, in my case is Pokeworld. Pokeworld is a Google action that I have developed for that gives you information about Pokemons, and tell me information about Pikachu. Okay, so the Pokeworld is the Google Actions name. So once we say talk to Pokeworld, that will tells you that will enable, or that we are going to start the Google Action context. So from now on, Google Assistant will understand all the utterances and all the slots that we have in that Google Actions in our natural language model. Okay, in our voice user interface, as I explained before. So here you can see like you have one utterance called tell me info about Pikachu, but that utterance can be different. I mean, we can request information about a Pokemon in a lot of different ways. For instance, tell me info about Pikachu, tell me information about Pikachu, or just Pikachu, for example. Pikachu is the slot. The slot is basically a variable, so that could be Pikachu, that can be Charmander, Charizard, or whatever you are requesting information. A group of similar utterances, because for instance, the way of we are trying to get information about the Pokemon, all these, let's say that we have like 3-4 utterances. Those 3-4 utterances are mapped to the same intent, because we are requesting for the same information about one Pokemon. Okay, so utterances are mapped to one intent, utterances related utterances, and the slots are the variables that can be reused. So yeah, this is how natural language understanding works. And this is an example of my Google action, which is that gives you information. You can request information, for example, about evolutions of one Pokemon. Here is I'm using the built-in views that they have for the smart devices. And for instance, requesting the evolutions of Charmander, it will tell you that their evolutions are Charmeleon and Charizard. So that is the Google Actions. Important to know that it will be, it's going to be sunsetting on from a year. So in 2023 basically. Last thing, to develop the Google Actions, we have the Google Actions Builder, which is a fantastical graphic user interface that you can have to develop your Google Actions. From the conversation itself to testing to publishing in production, etc. And also you have a CLI, which is the Action CLI, that you can download your code and your Google Action code and developing this from your laptop, just in case you don't have access to the internet. And for instance, all the metadata, all the scenes, the intents, everything is mapped to YAMLs, and then you have the Firebase function, your backend, on another place that you can develop locally as well. On my blog on shabidov.me you can find a bunch of examples of how to develop locally a Google Action. So let's talk about voice assistants and mobile apps. Let's talk about Google App Actions. So the Google App Actions is like it's not the latest feature, but maybe the newest feature, and Google is pushing this much more. In fact, the Google Actions are going to be sunsetted, and the Google App Actions is a new way of interacting with the Google Assistant. Okay, so basically it's a way that we can add to our Google to our Android app. So the Android app itself, you can add capabilities to the Google Assistant. Okay, for instance, let's say like you are developing the Uber app. So for the Uber app, and you want to add some capabilities to the Google Assistant, for example, like requesting like an Uber, or requesting delivery for the next 30 minutes, for Papa John's, for example. So that is a capability that you can add to the Google Assistant thanks to Google App Actions. At the end, it's going to be I will show you in a bit. So how that works, for instance, let's say that we're going to order a pizza. So here the user will interact with the Google Assistant. Okay, the Google Assistant can be executed on Android Auto, Wear OS that was recently launched, or just on your phone. So let's say like you are on your phone, and you are ordering a pizza from your example app. Okay, let's say example app, let's say Uber. So once you are interacting, the first thing is you have to specify on your Android app. Sorry about that. Yeah. On your Android app, you have to specify the shortcuts.xml. In that file, what you are going to specify is all your voice capabilities, which is all the built-in intents that Google gives you, which is they have a bunch of built-in intents. All the how those intents are going to be processed, and all that stuff. So once you are interacting with the Google Assistant, it will check, like if you have that capability enabled. For instance, order a pizza in your shortcuts.xml. It will fulfill the user inputs on your Android app. For instance, let's say that for ordering a pizza, if you already said like the entire information that you need to order a pizza, the Android app will show up with all the information fulfilled, and you can request For instance, you can check the information and then press a button to order that pizza. Or for instance, the pizza can be already ordered, and then you can check the status on the Android app. That is the screen that is going to show you. So on the Google App Action side, what you have are built-in intents. They call it BII. You can find it on the documentation. They have a bunch of built-in intents, and for example, to order a pizza, to do some exercise, you can reuse a bunch of built-in intents. If their built intents are not or don't fit your needs, you can add your custom intents, and also you can create dynamic intents on your app. Once you are with the App Actions SDK, you can create dynamic intents as well. Also, in terms of the replies, you can show up, your Android app as the example that I explained you before. But you can show a widget on the Google Assistant. That can be, for instance, here a summary of your workout on the example on your right. But that can be a bunch of things. For example, if you are requesting, I don't know, like let's say that you have one app for that is tracking your sleep hours. You can add an app action to give you the summary of the last week, and that you can create a widget with a graph of with some statistics of how was your week in terms of sleeping hours, and you can create the widget and show up to the user. And as I told you, you have to use the shortcuts.xml that is on the Google App Actions on the Google App Actions SDK, and you have the testing tool for Android Studio in order to test the Google App Actions. This is an example of how the shortcuts.xml looks like. In this case, for example, you will see like the capability or the intent that we are adding is the start exercise, and that will have a parameter which is the exercise name, which is the exercise type, and it's required. Once this is fulfilled, it will be triggered the activity one, which is that could be an Android app screen that can show you, for instance, I don't know, like kind of a clock or something with your exercise already started. In this case, you can see two intents. The second one is the fallback intent. That means that if the start exercise and the exercise type doesn't fit with what you are requesting, it will be triggered the activity 2. Okay, in this case. So if we see this schema, that is basically how the Google App Actions works. Just as to sum up all the things that I explained in terms of the Google App Actions. So when you are interacting with the Google Assistant and you are, for instance, requesting to test app about last run, that is a built-in intent, which is a get exercise observation that utterance about last run. That utterance is you can find that in the built-in get exercise observation, and the entity extraction, the slot that I explained you before, is run. So that will once that natural language understanding is happening in the system, and once that extraction is done, it will request that information to your app. In this case, we are going to create a widget, and that widget will tell us the exercise, the last run exercise information, and the assistant app will show you, us that information, and also we can add TTS capabilities as well, text to speech, to display that information. This is a screenshot. It is very small, but I mean that shows you an example of the Google Assistant plugin. You can find that plugin on the Android Studio Marketplace, and again that was launched on the last on the Google I/O Extended and the Google I/O as well, but the Google App Actions right now can work with Android Auto, Android for Cars, and also Android Wear. And that's it for conclusions. Yeah, this is in a very early stage. I think it's very easy to start. It is continue changing. It is happening. I mean, there is a huge adoption, and it doesn't change our life, but it makes it easier. At least this is what I think, and it has a potential market. For recommendations, my recommendation, at least the most important one, is to follow the Google Developer Experts and the Google Developers account, and also the Google Developers Europe account in this case. For Google, for the actions on Google, or for Google Actions, you can find that. I mean that I recommend you to follow these their social media accounts, which is Actions on Google on Twitter, Twitch, or YouTube, and same for the Google App Actions. Okay. The community in terms of Google Actions and Google App Actions, Google is using Reddit, which is they have one Reddit called Google Assistant Dev, and you can join and ask some questions. And that's it. I don't know if you have any questions, but yeah, thank you very much for coming to the Google Unconference.